Ahí está el detalle. En general es hombres de palabra.
Te prometen lo que sea, con tal de conseguir lo que quieren. Pero después les recuerdas, siempre te dicen, mañana, mañana, mañana. ¿Qué le vamos a hacer? Gajes del oficio.
De maletas.
Mira qué guapo.
¿Me gusta?
Me encanta, está preciosa.
Oye, güey, la cana está bien. Súbete. Súbete.
Pues que Mariana no está muerto, culero. Salazar está trabajando por el cartel Juárez. Sí. Pues no mames con la chica que no te importa, güey. Eso es.
Es que no está dando bomba, ¿no? Es la razón por la que Salazar le interesa tanto limpiar a Tijuana.
Tiene planes para tomar un dragón en el culero.
Pues eso es así.
¿Cuánto pagarían por esa información?
Pues,
Chingo de lana, compa. ¿Qué onda? ¿Qué onda, güey?
ya de los lentes.
No mames, güey.
Ya de los
No
lentes.
mames.
Mírame a los
¿Qué
ojos,
clases?
cabrón.
Sí, claro.
Nosotros nos vamos a callar el hocico.
¿Está bien?
Hey, muscles. Hey, why you in the gym?
The man's found our Mexican drug czar, the General Salazar. Has something to look down there.
Does this mean you're going to be gone more?
Possibly.
You might want to pencil in a little FaceTime with your daughter.
Robert,
Because I'm at the edge of my capabilities, Robert.
I think it's important to maintain a unified frontier, Barbara.
Can you start in on the war metaphors and let's drive this car into a fucking telephone?
I'm as worried as you are.
Oh, I don't think so. Leave me alone, give me some money. That's what I get from our daughter. She's like shutting me out. That seems very familiar.
She has a way of self-medicating, and I'm sure it's very familiar to you.
I'm not the one who has to have 3 scotches just to walk in the house and sing alone.
I have one drink before dinner and take the edge off. It's different.
So is it?
Otherwise, it would be dying of boredom.
Why don't you go in and tell your daughter how bored you are?
Caroline, open this door, mister.
Who's it?
Open that goddamn door.
You are not going anywhere that way you see right there. Where are they? Where the hell are the shots? Where are they?
Fuck you. Fuck you. I wasn't doing anything. Your life gets stopped on.
Oh, fuck you.
California just crossed the line and can't walk back. Violent anti-ICE rioters took over Los Angeles, and instead of stopping them, Democrats defended them. Governor Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass stood silent as federal agents were doxxed and attacked. Meanwhile, taxpayers funded chaos, not cleanup, and that's where the collapse begins. Let's take a closer look at exactly what California's leaders just did and what it means for the rest of the country. California Democrats didn't just fail to stop violence, they endorsed it. I've seen a lot in my lifetime. I've watched cities burn, policies collapse, and entire institutions rot from within. But what happened in Los Angeles wasn't just a failure of leadership, it was a surrender. It was the deliberate abdication of duty by those who swore an oath to uphold the law. The state didn't just stand aside while chaos erupted, it cheered. In Los Angeles, an ICE facility was stormed by radical protesters. These weren't peaceful demonstrators holding signs and chanting slogans. These were agitators, organized, aggressive, and militant. They attacked federal property. They assaulted officers. They destroyed equipment. And they did it with the full knowledge that nothing, absolutely nothing, would be done to stop them. They flew foreign flags in the streets of an American city. They chanted for the end of borders. They burned the American flag. Not metaphorically, literally. They set fire to the symbol of the nation that gave them the freedom they now exploit. And where were the police? Nowhere. Because in California, law enforcement is no longer permitted to enforce the law when the criminals wear the right slogans on their shirts. No arrests, no pushback, no consequences. Now you might ask, surely the governor condemned this. Not quite. Gavin Newsom, who never misses a chance to moralize when it suits him, called it free expression. Free expression? When federal agents are physically attacked and immigration offices are ransacked? Mayor Karen Bass went a step further. She defended the protest as a necessary voice of frustration. Frustration, apparently, now justifies violence and it targets the United States government.
You allow assholes to leave.
This wasn't frustration. This was sabotage. It was the rejection of American law and the celebration.
The question is, are we stupid?
And the
We're allowing assholes to lead us. Real assholes. People with
There's
no
blame for
fucking
this,
common
not the
sense.
protesters.
That's your Democrat
Certainly not the
rats.
politicians. The taxpayer did. You funded the cleanup. You funded the emergency services that were rerouted or closed. You funded the overwhelmed hospitals, the damaged infrastructure, the diverted personnel, and while your neighborhoods wait for basic city services, while your children walk past drug dens on their way to school, while you're told there's no money left to hire more officers or fix crumbling roads, your money is being spent defending the people who lit California on fire. Let's ask the uncomfortable question. For cameras, you have to ask. When violent mobs are labeled activists and law enforcement is demonized as oppressors, you have to ask. When a state treats foreign nationals better than its own legal citizens,
What the fuck are we paying the
let me ask
Democrat
another.
rats for?
Who protects the citizen when the state protects the mob? The social contract we're told to honor, obey the laws, pay your taxes, trust the process. That contract is broken when one side no longer believes in it. If the government won't uphold its end, why are you expected to uphold yours? This is not simply liberalism gone too far. This is selective anarchy. California officials are not neutral referees calling balls and strikes. They are activists, partisan radicals cloaked in political
California
office.
just crossed the line. It can't
Dissenters
walk
and
back.
protect criminals.
Violent
all while
anti-ICE
claiming
rioters
the
took
mantle
over
of
Los
morality.
Angeles,
And
and instead of stopping them, Democrats
this wasn't a
defended
one-off.
them.
This wasn't a
Governor
moment of
Newsom and
chaos
Mayor
that got out
Karen
of hand.
Bass
It
stood
was
silent
permitted,
as
it
federal
was
agents were
facilitated,
doxxed and
and it was
attacked.
protected.
Meanwhile,
These protests are
taxpayers
allowed to
funded
spiral
chaos,
into riots
not
because the
cleanup,
people in
and
charge
that's where
wanted
the
them
collapse.
to. The left knows they can't win the argument on immigration, on crime, or on law and order.
My
The
question is,
numbers are
what the
against
fuck are
them.
we paying the
The outcomes
Democrats
are
for?
visible. The results are in your neighborhood.
They don't never
So
have no
what do they do?
policies or
They
nothing.
shift the ground. They recast enforcement as violence.
The Democrats
They
never
recast
have no
violence as
policies or
activism.
nothing. They
They
always
delegitimize
against shit.
any
They're
attempt
against
to
everything
stop the
that Donald Trump
breakdown,
is about.
because stopping the breakdown would mean restoring a structure they no longer believe in. California's government, from the governor's mansion to City Hall, no longer serves the average American citizen. It serves a narrative. It serves an ideology. It serves a globalist fantasy that sees the nation state as an outdated obstacle and the American people as a guilty majority needing to be restrained. When federal agents are attacked and no one comes to their defense, when flags are burned and no one steps forward to say enough is enough, when destruction is rewarded with media praise and political cover, then the issue isn't just lawlessness. The issue is legitimacy. The state has lost it and the people know it. But why defend criminals and undermine agents of the law? The answer isn't confusion, it's ideology. The left fears enforcement because it threatens their borderless vision. If you want to understand what's happening in California and what's coming for the rest of America, you have to stop thinking this is about a mistake or miscommunication. It's neither. This is the result of an ideology, and the ideology is simple. Sovereignty is the enemy. ICE, more than any other agency, represents a concept the modern left has come to despise. The idea that a nation has the right to decide who enters, who stays, and what laws are upheld. That simple notion that a country is something more than just a piece of land people walk across at will is now seen as offensive, dangerous even. But why? Why would an American political movement turn its fury not on criminals, not on cartels, but on those tasked with protecting the legal fabric of the nation? Because to the left, law enforcement isn't a public good. It's a political obstacle. Look at ICE not through the lens of law and order, but through the lens of ideology. Immigration and customs enforcement does something uniquely dangerous to their vision. It enforces the line. It maintains the boundary between citizen and non-citizen, legal and illegal, order and chaos. It affirms the concept that some things must be earned, not given. And that alone is heresy to a political class obsessed with equity by force. So when rioters storm an ICE facility in Los Angeles, what you're seeing isn't some emotional overreaction. You're watching strategy in motion, the destruction of ICE, the demoralization of its agents, and the political protection of its attackers. These aren't contradictions, they're features of the agenda, because borderlessness isn't a side effect of leftist policy, it's the goal. Why do they shield violent criminal aliens? Why do they eliminate cooperation between ICE and local police? Why do they demand sanctuary cities while refusing to protect federal officers? The answer is painfully clear, because enforcement gets in the way of revolution. And revolution is what they're after. Not just against capitalism or the police, but against the very idea of an American citizen who holds a unique claim to their own nation. That's why this isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about identity. It's about
programming, man. Fuck.
That there's no moral difference between a legal immigrant and a convicted criminal who
Yep.
overstayed his visa, assaulted a citizen, and slipped through the cracks. This is the theology of the modern left. No borders, no nations, no walls, no hierarchy, except the one they control. And what do you call it when a ruling class engineers chaos, defends violence, and undermines every institution that once stood between the citizen and anarchy? You don't call that progress. You call that sabotage.
Yep.
Now look at what happens the moment someone steps in and restores the idea of law. Real law.
Real law.
Donald Trump did not
Yep.
simply oppose illegal immigration. He did something worse in their eyes. He made the law work again. He enforced it seriously. He put ICE back on the map. He honored their work instead of apologizing for it. He reversed policies designed to tie the hands of federal officers. He declared that the line between legal and illegal was not a racial concept. It was a national one. They've been trying to erase that precedent ever since, because Trump represents something they fear far more than bad policy. He represents successful opposition. He showed the country that you can enforce immigration law without becoming a villain. He reminded the nation that the Constitution does not resolve the border. He shattered the myth that compassion means surrender and that enforcement means cruelty. He proved in real time that law and order are not dirty words, unless you're trying to destroy both. This is the reason for the constant attacks, the endless investigations, the legal harassment, the media character assassinations. They don't fear Trump because he breaks the law. They fear him because he refuses to break it. That is why ICE must be dismantled. That is why police must be demonized. That is why every structure that upholds order, family, border, tradition, citizenship, must be either infiltrated or abolished. Because if Trump stands for sovereignty, they stand for submission. Submission to global authority, submission to mob politics, submission to a new social contract written not by voters or citizens, but by unelected ideologues and billionaire funders who don't believe in the nation they live in. So when you see Democrats defending mobs that attack ICE, don't assume it's just bad judgment. It's not naivety, it's alignment. They are protecting their foot soldiers. They are making clear that anyone who enforces the rule of law, especially at the border, is a bigger threat than the criminal crossing it. And if you think this ends in California, you haven't been paying attention. The same blueprint is already unfolding in Chicago, in New York, in cities where prosecutors drop charges for rioters, but throw the book at anyone who resists the narrative. We're not watching a failure of government. We're watching the emergence of a new kind of government, one that sees the Constitution as optional, borders as immoral, and your sovereignty as the problem. But Trump didn't just talk about restoring order. He used real power to do it. They call it protest. I call it insurrection. And while California Democrats lit the match and walked away, President Donald Trump was one of the few leaders in modern memory who had the courage to treat the chaos for what it actually was, a calculated assault on the American Republic. When rioters stormed federal buildings, burned flags, and physically attacked agents of immigration and customs enforcement, the left offered sympathy. Trump sent federal agents. When mayors from Portland to Los Angeles tied the hands of their own police, Trump bypassed the cowards. He invoked his constitutional authority and deployed federal law enforcement to restore order, not with hollow words, but with boots on the ground. Because when elected officials won't protect the people, someone has to. And that someone was not Gavin Newsom. It was not Carol.
I want to know why we still paying these people, man. These people going against everything that we want. Why are we still paying their salaries? Is the fucking question that needs to be asked.
Sanctuary jurisdictions
that
deliberately broke in.
Goddamn.
If you want to defy the Constitution and harbor criminal aliens, don't expect a check from the federal government. That was the Trump doctrine: obey the law or lose the benefits of civilization. Then came the most devastating part. Trump revived a program the left had tried to kill for years, 2872, a partnership between ICE and local law enforcement that empowered sheriffs and deputies to act directly in immigration enforcement. The left hates it because it worked. And that's the dirty little secret they don't want you to hear. Law enforcement wasn't failing, it was being sabotaged. And Trump knew it. So he put power back in the hands of the people who wore the badge. The people the left was calling racist and fascist. People getting bricks thrown at their heads while the media wrote love letters to the mob. But Trump did more than defend them. He restored their morale. He gave them a president who would not bow to the manufactured outrage of academic activists or Twitter mobs. He rejected the fraudulent narrative of systemic racism, a phrase designed not to improve law enforcement, but to dismantle it entirely. Because this is not a debate about police techniques. It is a war over whether the rule of law should exist at all. And the reason they do it is simple, right? They want power without limits. That's why they attack ICE. That's why they protect rioters. That's why they call border enforcement a hate crime, but vandalism a peaceful protest, because the criminal serves their revolution. The citizen is its obstacle. Trump knew it, and he said so. He called out the mayors, the governors, the city council members by name who undermined federal authority and endangered public safety. He exposed the ideological rot that had metastasized in blue state leadership. And he made one thing clear: if you want to live in a country, then you need to have a border. If you want to live under laws, then someone needs to enforce them. If you want safety, then you need to defeat the criminals, not empower them. Trump didn't come to Washington to negotiate with anarchy. He came to end it. He didn't come to adjust the status quo. He came to burn down the false consensus that said America must tolerate its own destruction in the name of compassion. And when the media shrieked that his actions were authoritarian, he wore it as a badge of honor. Because the alternative, letting cities fall, letting agents bleed, letting criminals walk, wasn't peace. It was surrender. The American people elected Trump because they were tired of being told that protecting their homes was bigotry, that defending their borders was oppression, that upholding the law was somehow the problem, and lawlessness the solution. This is where the entire narrative falls apart. Trump governed like a man who understood the stakes, not as a politician looking for applause, but as a leader who saw a republic on the brink. He didn't want reform. He wanted accountability, not tweaks to the system, but a reckoning with those who had betrayed it. Because once you normalize lawlessness, once you allow elected officials to choose which laws to ignore, which agents to abandon, which mobs to bless, then you no longer live in a constitutional republic. You live in a managed collapse. And for 4 years, Trump interrupted that collapse. Now they've tried to undo it. They've tried to erase it. They've indicted him, investigated him, and smeared him. But what they can't do is, no matter how many charges they file or mobs they unleash, is erase what the American people saw with their own eyes: order restored, crime punished, and courage at the top. And now, after years of lies and lawfare, the American people are finally seeing the truth. They thought no one would notice. They thought the people would forget. But now the backlash is here, and it's overwhelming. In Los Angeles, residents are waking up to a bitter truth. The state that takes more in taxes than nearly any other in the union can't seem to pay for border safety or emergency response. But it has no problem subsidizing riots, protecting violent illegal aliens, and kneeling before mobs waving foreign flags. After the ICE riots in LA, where American agents were attacked on federal soil, not only was there no condemnation from city leadership, there was justification. Mayor Karen Bass called the destruction a symptom of frustration. Gavin Newsom, as always, pivoted to vague platitudes about dialogue. Meanwhile, ambulances were delayed, roads were blocked, and working-class residents in South Central and East LA were left to fend for themselves while the city's resources were spent monitoring a mob that should have been stopped, but this was just the beginning. The political class is about to learn the one thing they always underestimate: the people remember, and the people are angry. Latino voters, once considered a permanent Democrat voting bloc, are walking away. not because of slogans or sound bites, but because of what they're living through. Neighborhoods overrun with crime, schools teaching division instead of discipline, and cities that won't protect them, but will punish them for protecting themselves. Poll after poll now shows a decisive shift. Working class Hispanic Americans, especially in urban areas and border states, are turning toward Trump. Why? Because he didn't make excuses. He made decisions. He defended ICE. He didn't pretend illegal immigration was just a humanitarian issue. He called it what it is, an attack on national sovereignty and a betrayal of the American worker. The left thought they had these voters locked down with appeals to identity, but they miscalculated. These are not people looking for handouts. They're looking for security. They don't want slogans. They want law and order. And it's not just Los Angeles. This shift is national. Then came the most devastating part. San Francisco, the spiritual home of progressive politics, just recalled a soft-on-crime DA. Seattle voters put law and order candidates back on the map. Even in New York, where radicalism once ruled the headlines, there's now a growing resistance to policies that punish the police and reward the criminal. Why? Because ideology eventually collides with reality. And when the dust settles, it's not the politicians who pay the price. It's the single mother whose car was vandalized, the retiree mugged in broad daylight, the immigrant shop owner who calls the police and gets no answer. These aren't abstract failures. These are real lives, real losses. This is where the entire narrative falls apart. For years, the left cloaked their agenda in the language of race, as if enforcing immigration law was racist, as if defending your neighborhood made you a bigot. But that argument is unraveled. The reality is now undeniable. This isn't about race. It's about class. The elites, the donors, the academics, the media class live behind gates, travel with security, and send their children to private schools. They champion the criminal because they never face the consequences. They mock ICE agents because they never rely on them. But the rest of the country, of the construction workers, the nurses, the legal immigrants who followed the rules, they live on the front lines of this collapse, and they're tired of being told that the law is the problem. They know the truth. The law is the only thing standing between them and chaos, and that's why the support for Trump keeps growing. Every indictment, it only reinforces what his supporters already know, that the system is rigged to protect the corrupt and punish the patriotic. Every media hit piece, every activist DA, every cable news meltdown only reminds the public of why they elected him in the first place, because he fights back. And the polls prove it. In battleground states, Trump is outperforming Biden not just among conservatives, but among independents, working class minorities, and suburban voters who feel abandoned. Not because Trump changed, but because the country did. They watched as the cities burned. They watched as federal officers were abandoned. They watched as the left defended criminals and demonized the people who risked their lives to stop them. And now they're done watching. They want order. They want safety. They want borders. And they want someone who won't apologize for enforcing it. The political establishment calls this dangerous. I call it inevitable. Because a nation can only survive so much insanity before the people demand sanity back. And when that moment comes, they won't turn to the mayors who stood down. They won't turn to the governors who looked away. They won't turn to the media who lied to their faces. They'll turn to the only man who told the truth and enforced it. They don't fear Trump because he threatens California. They fear him because he threatens the machine that's collapsing it. And that machine isn't just political. It's cultural, economic, and spiritual. It thrives on dependency, on blurred borders, on the never-ending cycle of crisis and control. It tells Americans they're the problem while importing the chaos they never voted for. But Trump exposed it. He stripped away the euphemisms, the activist jargon, the bureaucratic smokescreens, and revealed a ruling class terrified of one thing: accountability. That's why they call him dangerous. Because unlike the consultants and the careers, he doesn't want to manage the decline. He wants to end it and rebuild what they've spent decades tearing down.
Nah, it made sense. Shit, it's time for a change.